Morning and welcome to One Grumpy Old Man and His Classics. So this week's video is going to be a little bit different. The reason? My cars have been covered in frost for the last 3 days, and because I don't get any sun at the front of my property, it's just too cold to do any work whatsoever on them. Yep, I could drag the Jag out the garage, but if I'm honest, I can't be bothered. Still going to be cold. So this week's video will be a little bit different. As I said in the intro, that this video is going to be a little bit different to normal, and by the intro you'll get it. This video was basically going to be just a brief overview of vehicles that I've restored, saved, or put back on the road since COVID. But I did find a few of some of my other cars that I've owned, so I just thought I'd just give you a brief history maybe of my sort of cars that I've owned. Does that make sense? So anyway, if I'm looking down at your phone, because I've got the pictures in front of me on my phone, and it's going to prompt me to make sure I get all this in the correct order. So if we go back to say 1991, or maybe 1989, I really got into Land Rovers in quite a big way, and I bought my first Series 3 Land Rover in 1989, joined the Land Rover club, and I used it for doing competitions. It was called RTVs, Road Tax Vehicle, and it was like doing competitions between sections, and I really got into that in a big way. But it soon became clear that an old Coil Spring 2.25 petrol Land Rover, yeah, very capable vehicle, but I wanted something a bit better. I wanted something that everyone else had, and that's where I bought my first Range Rover. So in 1990, I bought a 1975 Range Rover, and this is, if you think like now, these are worth lots of money. They could be stupidly expensive depending on how early they are. But I bought my first Range Rover for £2,000. Well, 1995 I paid for it. And in them days, for £2,000 roughly, basically, you could get a really nice Range Rover. So you'll see the image of my first Range Rover that I owned. And again, I used that off-road for competitions and stuff because it had the benefits. It was coil sprung, disc brakes all round, V8 engine, brilliant machine. So anyway, I soon beat the hell out of that by doing lots of off-roading. But what I really wanted was a coil sprung Land Rover. And of course, at that time, the 90 Land Rover, which later got called Defender, they were coil sprung, and of course far much more competitive vehicle. So then, back in those days, what a lot of us were doing, we had old Range Rovers. You take the body off, throw it away, shorten the chassis, so you shortened the wheelbase, and we put a Series 3 Land Rover body on a Range Rover chassis. Of course, you've got the benefits: coil sprung, disc brakes all round, the short wheelbase, and a Land Rover body. So that's what we've done. So the next image, you'll see what looks like a Series 3 Land Rover, but it's basically a Series 3 body on a Range Rover chassis, and I built that from scratch. And in them days, it was far cheaper to do it that way than go and buy a 90, because 90s were like sort of, they weren't very old at that point and a very, very expensive vehicle. So that's why I built my coil sprung special. That's what we called them. They were called hybrids and they were coil sprung specials. So that's the image of my Land Rover.
And how old were you at that point? 89, 90?
89, I was 29, 30.
Ah.
Yeah, so I was still a pup.
And was it 2,000 in those days?
In those days?
Now?
No, £2,000 in them days. Even though back in 1991, yeah, £2,000 wasn't a massive amount of money, but it was, you know, a fair bit.
Right.
But, you know, it wasn't overly expensive. But that was to buy a nice Range Rover. I mean, for £1,000, you could buy a Range Rover, be a bit beaten up and probably a bit rusty, but you could buy them for £1,000. And I did buy them for £1,000. Well, I bought one. So apart from this one you see in the image, I bought and owned two others. I bought one for £500. That was pretty rough. And then I bought another one for £1,000. So, you know, they were around at like not a lot of money, you know, like pocket money by today's standards.
And another question: how did you know about the competitions? Why did you want to do it?
Because when I bought my first Land Rover, which was just a normal bog standard Series 3 short wheelbase Land Rover, I read about it. And in them days, we didn't have Google or online or anything. So you bought magazines, and in the back it would give you the list of all the local clubs. So I just made a phone call, inquired about it, found out what they did, went and watched a couple of these events, and I thought, yeah, I want to do some of that. So
did you win any?
Yeah, well, I won. I had trophies and from different periods through the years I was doing it.
Any photos?
I probably have in the loft. So anyway, so after the coil spring, after my hybrid, so I had aspirations for something else. I'd seen something else that I really, really wanted. And that was what was called a Land Rover 101 forward control. And that was an ex-army Land Rover, specifically built to do a job. It was basically to tow a gun tractor and ammunition, but that was built purely for the British Army. And then, of course, once they started being demobbed and sold into civilian life, I wanted one. So I actually bought one. They were all left-hand drive. Well, I say all, I think there was just a very small handful that may have been right-hand drive. They came as what I had, which was the canvas top. You could get them as an ambulance. It's towing a trailer. That on the trailer is a ex-army lightweight Land Rover, and that was a three-way ownership thing. So the trailer and the lightweight, belonged to three of us. And we had it made into a vehicle that was capable of doing cross-country vehicle trials, which was slightly different to CC, which was different. Road tax vehicle was obviously a road legal vehicle, but cross-country vehicle was a whole different type of competition. So we bought that, had the roll cage put on it, and so that's what that was for. So that was the Land Rover. So that was probably the end of my Land Rover because I sold that, and I sold the whole lot. And then after that, there was.
Did you make a profit on that one?
Yeah, I did. So after that, then came married life. And then came the children. So
96 and 97.
Yeah. So after that, my attention turned to classic cars. That was almost by accident, really, because I I like to run old cars rather than modern cars, I sort of fell into the classic car movement, and that's where I got my first BMW 5 Series, which is the gold one. That was my first. Prior to that, I did have a couple of other classic cars, but these are the only photographs I've got. So the BMW is probably where it really started from. So I had the 5 Series BMW, kept that for a number of years, and then I decided that I wanted the M535i version, and you'll see that in this next image is my blue M535i, which was, you know, to look at, it was a lovely car, but it was just so unreliable. I went through 2 gearboxes on it. I had numerous electrical issues, and yeah, there was a few problems with it, but I mean, externally, bodily, it was a beauty to look at. It was just a bit mechanically and electronically unreliable.
Sounds a bit like itself.
Yeah. So then after the BMW, of course, in that time, we also owned, at the same time, the Jaguar XJ6. And you're going to see in the next image, or the next couple of images, is where I've, halfway through the ownership of this car, it needed restoring. Paintwork had faded and it wasn't rusty. This car's never been welded, but it was, the bodywork was just getting a little bit tired. So I decided to restore it. So I gave that a full body restoration, you know, repaint, and I changed the wheels, I've changed the interior because it was quite a low spec XJ6, a cloth interior. My wife wanted leather, so I bought a second-hand leather interior and put in it. I've done a bit of other retrimming stuff to it inside. I've totally resprayed it. I put 2 second-hand wings on it because the originals had just started to corrode at the bottom. Same for the boot lid was the same. I got a second-hand boot lid. I had second-hand bumpers. So I really went to town on it, and to make it into the car it is today. We bought that in 2001. I restored that 2017, 2018. So that's been a long-term ownership vehicle. Always maintained it regardless of cost. But it came a time when it was getting a bit scruffy and it needed some work. So I gave that a full body restoration, and that meant I stripped down the bumpers into all their component parts and redone all them. So I really went to town on it, and mechanically it's just been maintained regardless. And I have put another engine in it as well, because the previous engine dropped a couple of valves and it was just cheaper to buy a second-hand engine than rebuild it. So I put another engine in it. So that's the XJ6. Where it really all started for me, and where it really sort of took off, is that in December 2019, and it was, I think it was the 19th of December, I'd already finished work for Christmas, and I found a Mark III Escort locally, and it was like a garage that sells salvage. Even though this was in a garage that sells salvage, this car wasn't recorded as salvage, and I think it ended up where it was because it was very scruffy, and it had like every corner of the car had been knocked, bashed, scraped. Someone had run out the back of it, and it was the passenger front wing. You could get hold of it and you could wobble it. It was literally detaching from the car. And when you opened the passenger door, the front passenger door, it was like a comedy act. You'd open it and you had to catch it because it was almost fell off its hinges. It was that bad. So, but underneath, floor pan wise and all that sort of thing, it was really good, and I could see it had good bones, so I bought it. And I think the winter of 2019 going into 2020, it just rained and rained and rained, so I couldn't do anything to the car. So I'd gone round the car and made a list of everything I thought I would possibly need. So in that sort of run up to COVID, I'd been buying all the parts I needed. I had the paint, I had everything I needed. And then COVID came along.
March 2020.
Yep, COVID came along. I got furloughed from work, which ended up lasting, I was furloughed for 5.5 months. And of course I had the car, I had the parts, so I spent COVID restoring my Mark III Escort, which is a 1.3 gear. And so of course the next images you'll see a picture of the car as I bought it, and then a couple of pictures of just some random pictures of me doing some paintwork on it. But yeah, so, and that car, it's funny like how you buy a car and then once you start digging into it, even though this car, when I bought it, it had rear end damage, once I started stripping the car and digging into it, it had been run up the back of before, so it had been repaired once before. So the car had quite a checkered history, but it was low ownership, and I believe that the previous owner to me must have been an old chap or an old lady or something, because it had been long-term ownership. Every corner of the car had chunks taken out of it, you know, missing bumper end caps, missing indicator covers. It was just knocked about. And because it was that, when I looked at the MOT history, it was like 500-600 miles every year. So it was obviously like once a week down to the local shops, get the shop in, and then hit every car on the way home, you know. So it was, I think it was owned by someone elderly, and it just got knocked about. And then it just ended up with this garage that sold salvage cars. So, but
a bit of background on that is, when you bought it originally, it was going to be a weekend kind of thing. And then when COVID came, it then became a daily thing.
Well, yes, it was going to be just a little project car, you know, a couple of hours in the week, maybe a Saturday or Sunday on it. You know, it was going to take like 18 months or whatever to restore it back to its former glory. But because of COVID, it got done in 4 months, and it ended up, Practical Classics, I ended up being
Restorer of...
No, it wasn't Restorer of the Year. It was Lockdown Hero.
That's it.
I was a Lockdown Hero, and it was featured in Practical Classics. So, and then after the Escort, you're going to see an image of a Renault 5. I sold the Escort, and then I bought a Renault 5, which didn't need a massive amount of work. It just needed a bit of tidying up and some good servicing. You know, it needed some brakes and stuff like that. But it was an ex-Guernsey car, and so it was very low mileage, automatic. It was a lovely thing. It was really nice. And then, of course, you know, you get a bit bored.
Was that 21?
I can't remember. I can't remember the timeline, but yeah, it would have been about 21. So I sold the Renault 5, and then you're going to see a couple of images of the Saab that I bought, the Saab 900i. Saab 900i. And when I bought that, I probably paid a bit too much for it, really.
How much?
I think 17.25 I paid for it. Paid too much for it. But anyway, I'd had a Saab 99 GL Combi Coupe years ago, and I just fancied another Saab. So I bought this Saab, and even though it had a current MOT, it wasn't until I got it home and started digging into it. It shouldn't have had an MOT really, because it had so much wrong with it. whether it was steering, suspension, brakes. It was a real bodge up, and so I rebuilt everything. I went through the whole mechanical side of the car. I had to deal with a lot of oil leaks on the engine. I stripped a lot of the engine down and put new seals in and stuff like that. And I changed the wheels because I didn't like the steel wheels with the stainless steel hubcaps. It just looked a bit rubbish. So when I finished with it, it was a lovely car, really nice. And then
You should say about that point you fully retired and you were able to do cars more full
well,
time.
yes, I took early retirement just after COVID, and that meant I could indulge in my passion of old cars.
Yeah.
So after the Saab, I then went on to, what did I go on to after the Saab? I'm just trying to think. My pictures have gone out of sequence.
Oh dear.
So actually, so while I had the Saab, I needed another vehicle that I needed to do quite a number of miles in each day because I was helping my son out. And so I bought a Mark III Granada 2-litre gear.
Oh yeah.
And that, so you're going to see an image of that. So I bought the Granada gear as a hack, you know, to do quite a lot of mileage in a short period of time.
Southampton.
Yeah. So after the the Granada wasn't quite up to it actually, so I sold that on, and that's when I indulged myself in the Mercedes W210. Not that car needed anything, because I was quite particular. Not that I was after a Mercedes at all. Once I'd seen this car and I'd done a lot of research and that, and this car had very good history, low ownership, and that's why I bought it. So that was a little bit of an indulgence for me. Never owned a Mercedes before. Wish I'd owned one years ago. Drives beautiful. Absolutely love it. It's 2.8 V6. Just drives like an absolute dream.
And you still got that one?
I've still got that. So then, when I got rid of the Saab, I bought my current BMW 5 Series, which you're going to see an image of now. So how as I found it in the lockup it was in for 19 years, and how it looks now. Now it's been like I've done a full, I say restoration. It was a full mechanical restoration. Didn't have to do much to the engine and gearbox, but like brakes, suspension, steering, anything rubber, it's been rebuilt. I've done a tiny bit of bodywork. I've tried to keep a bit of patina about it because that's all part of its history. But so the 5 Series BMW, which I've currently got, and then in between, I've also you're going to see an image or a couple of images of my mate, or actually who owned the BMW that I bought that was in the garage for 19 years. This is a Peugeot 406 that he's owned for quite some years, and he does like his Peugeots, especially that particular model. And it was a daily driver for him. Then he got a company car. He parked it up in his garden, and it sat in his garden for 5-6 years. And then I have recommissioned it for him. So I rebuilt all the brakes, I serviced it, cam belt. I'd done a whole load of work on that for him to get it back on the road. We got it back through a clean MOT after 6 years.
Your mate's vehicle that you had off him, and it took you quite a long length of time to actually get it off him.
It took a lot of years.
Yeah.
A lot of years. So, but
Bless him.
yeah, I mean, there was a lot of banter involved. You know, I was always giving him a low ball offer, which I knew he would never accept anyway. And he was like, "Oh no, it's worth more than that," you know. And I go, "Yeah, no, it's not. You know, it's going rusty. No, it's not. You know, we just have banter about it." But at that time, I didn't have the space at that point to actually have done it all those years ago. But then as the years went on and I retired and stuff, and then it became more not agreeable, but it became, you know, he was starting to think, you know, well, I'm never going to do anything with it, and I'm the right person to do it. It was just a case of agreeing the price, and then, you know, even though he didn't really want to sell it because it was his all-time favourite car, he knew it was going to the right home, but he would have loved to have kept it, but he hasn't got the
finances.
no, he's got the finances, but he hasn't got the necessary skills to do it himself. If he had kept it and he wanted it on the road, he'd have got me to do it for him, which I would have done. But yeah, so it just all came about, and eventually he relented, and I became its new custodian, you know. So, and if I ever did want to get rid of it, he's always got the first refusal on it. So, you know, that's sort of, it wasn't part of the deal, but I made that offer. If I ever did have to sell it, I mean, one day I'll have to sell it, because I'm going to get to a point in my age where, you know, you just can't continue to do this sort of stuff with cars. So at some point in the future, it will have to be sold, but he will always have first offer if he wants it back. So,
yeah, and it actually took you to be in hospital for you to finally get the deal.
Well, it did, yes.
Fine.
Yeah, it did, yeah. It took for me to end up in hospital and find out I've got heart failure, apparently. So, and that's how it all came about. I thought, because I had the diagnosis of heart failure, that's when I sold the Saab. I was laying in my hospital bed, I had my laptop, I listed it on Car and Classic and sold that via that website. And then it turns out, yeah, I've got heart failure, but I've got medication, you know, tablets to control it. And actually my heart function has improved over the last 12 months. Not that I've noticed any, I never had symptoms before I ended up in hospital, and I've not had the symptoms since. But anyway, I'm on all this medication and that to keep me alive. And
Just about.
yeah, so yeah, as it turns out, the heart failure wasn't significantly as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought my days were numbered, sort of thing. And then I thought, oh, well, I've sold my car, I didn't really need to. So that's when the conversation came about the BMW, and we eventually done a deal. So yeah, that's not going anywhere, not for a long time. That's my last restoration for myself. That's my last car. I'm not buying anything else. I've done that as well, and then in between, so the next picture you're going to see is the image of Project Viking. So that's going to be the next vehicle. Oh, sorry, I missed a vehicle out there. We need to rewind a bit. So I've almost forgotten about the Alfa Romeo.
How dare you?
Yes, how dare I. So the Alfa Romeo was, I'd finished my BMW 5 Series, and I thought I need something to get my hands on and do some work on. So the Alfa came up dead local. It was typical Alfa fashion. It was rusty, but again, that had good bones. You know, it had a good history to it. You know, long-term ownership. I soon started to discover that even though the car was local to me, a neighbour of mine knew the family, and I got to meet the original owner of the car. before the guy who was the owner before the guy I bought it from. So, you know, I found out a lot about the car, and I'm glad I saved it, because even though it had failed dramatically, its MOT on rust, when I actually went to view it, in my opinion, it wasn't that bad. It sounded and read a lot worse than it actually was. So I went to town on it. I cut the rust out, I let new metal in, I thoroughly rust treated it, I done a bit of servicing to it, I done all the advisories on it. There was a long list of advisories. I went through all them, and I found other stuff that I believe needed doing. So I just went through, and that turned out to be a lovely looking car. And so then that wasn't to be a keeper, that was just something to keep me occupied.
And something for the content for the channel as well. That was.
So basically keep you occupied. So anyway, so that was done. I sold that. It's now down in Devon. And that brings us up to date with Project Viking. So the next image you're going to see is the Rover. Well, it's a Rover P6 2-litre single carb, but time it's finished, it's going to be it's a 2-litre twin carb. So it's the only engine we could find. It's period correct for that model, just not the correct engine that car was built with. So it's gone from a single carb to a twin carb. So, but that's the only engine we could find. You could say, why don't we convert it to single? No, I have made a bit of a mistake there. So it's, I'm trying to think now, is it a 2.2? No, so it's actually a 2-litre, so the car is a 2-litre single carb, but the engine that we found is a 2-litre twin carb, but it's not interchangeable, the parts, because the single carb engine didn't have a separate inlet manifold, where the twin carb engine has a separate inlet manifold. So it's not interchangeable. So we're just going to make it into a twin carb car rather than a single carb. So that car doesn't need any welding, doesn't need any body work. It's all mechanical. So it's brakes, steering, and getting the engine running and the fuel system and all that sort of stuff. So it still needs a lot of work, even though I've got another engine that me and my mate have put in it, and it's bolted to the gearbox and it's bolted to the engine mounts. It's not actually connected up, you know, fuel pump, throttle cables, all that sort of stuff. It's still, and of course the throttle linkage is not quite the same, and there's a bit of engineering that needs to make all this happen. So it needs that finishing off. Then once I know it runs and the engine is okay and it's good, I can look at the fuel system. The tanks probably have to come out, be cleaned out, because it's been stood for so long with bad fuel in it, and you know, and then the brakes is going to need. It's going to need. It's sort of the brakes aren't seized up, but they are binding a bit. So all the calipers all need to be looked at, stripped down, and all that sort of good stuff. And you'll see that in upcoming videos when I start working on the Rover. But it's not going to be like a 2-part series for the Rover. It's going to be over an extended period of time, because in my life, it's not just I can work on cars and that's it. I do have other responsibilities in my life that I need to attend to. So it's going to be over a period of time. So it's not going to be a 2, 3 or 4-part thing. It's going to be over several months at least. And so that's where we are.
There was another car that made the magazine.
That was a Jaguar.
Yeah.
So because I restored the XJ6 over a 2-year period, that was also featured in Practical Classics, and it was under the Restorer of the Year
That one.
category. So over a 12-month period, each month they'd have Restorer of the Year, and then at the end of the year there'd be like a sort of people would say who they think should be the winner, you know.
Like a ranking. Top 10 or something.
No. So no, there wouldn't be a top 10. It would be people would vote on who's Restorer of the Year, and I was in that category, but obviously I didn't win. But that wasn't what it was about, because they originally, that's how come I ended up getting the Escort and the Jaguar in Practical Classics, because they came to do an article on the Jaguar. But when they saw the Escort in the drive and I told them the story about it, they were interested in that too. So the Escort was actually in the magazine before the Jaguar was.
Isn't it mad that if COVID hadn't happened at all, none of this would have happened?
Well, if COVID hadn't have happened, then there's quite a good chance I'd still be working.
And you'd be going, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's Monday. Oh God.
Getting up at 5 and...
Yeah, get up at 5, I hate work, you know. But yeah, so yeah, if it weren't for COVID, I wouldn't be where I am now. And so that's where we are, up to date with sort of my current and a little bit of my past car history. But you know, I've owned more cars than I can remember. So I sat down the other night trying to think of all the cars I've owned, and I kept thinking, oh yeah, I've had one of them, I've had. So I only went back so far, you know, just a pictorial overview of my past, just like the early 90s. Anything before that, I don't really have, because you didn't take pictures of cars then, really. So, and I haven't got any photographs of them. You know, I had Mark II Granadas, I've Vauxhall Nova SR, you know, the first version of it. You know, I had some good cars, you know. Ever since I owned a car from the age of 17, I've always done my own maintenance, bodywork. You know, however good my bodywork was when I was 17 is probably a lot to be desired, but it's I'm just self-taught. No one's trained me. I've just self-taught myself to do bodywork, welding, rebuilding, mechanical. I've built up my tools over that 40 odd years. You know, I've just and you know, it's just all self-taught. I've not been qualified or trained to do this. I've just taught myself. You know, and I've never used a garage. I've always maintained my own vehicles. You know, so, and I think I'm lucky, you know, because not everyone is good with spanners, and you know, not everyone's the same. We're all different. Some people think, oh, no, I'm not doing that, you know. Last thing they want to do is get underneath it, drop the oil, you know, give it a service. But for me, I'm like, ka-ching. It's like, you go to a garage, it's going to cost you X amount of hundreds to have a service. But if actually the oil is 25 quid, the filter's a £5, the air filter's probably another £5. I think, well, that's no brainer. Do it yourself. You know, that's always been my attitude. You know, and then something breaks, and I think, oh, that's all right. It's only nuts and bolts. It's not complicated. You know, it's just nuts and bolts at the end of the day. You just got to make sure you get nothing left over at the end when you put it back together. So.
And was it your dad that got you into the car part?
Yes. My dad was like back in them days. Yeah, my parents didn't have money for like new cars. Like everyone back in them days, they would drive rusty old bangers because that's what they were. And my dad used to like do his own maintenance. He'd do his own body work. And of course, you know, I sort of watched my dad, and I got sort of sucked into it, you know, and that's where it came from. But my dad didn't have nowhere near the knowledge that I built up. You know, so my dad sort of started me off, and then I just progressed myself and just kept on. I just wanted to learn, and I just kept taking things apart, put back together, you know. And if it didn't work afterwards, you think, okay, you go and buy a new bit and put that in. But I'd always try and fix the part first before I bought a new one, because now it's a lot different. You can't take a lot of stuff apart. you know, a lot of it is a throwaway. You've got to go and buy a new alternator or a new starter motor or whatever. But back in the day, you know, you could put new brushes in your alternator. You know, you could strip the starter motor down, put a new solenoid in it, and all that sort of thing. You know, and but yeah, that's what you did. You rebuilt stuff. You didn't necessarily, you know, like back in, you know, in the 80s, early 80s, there weren't like motor factors like there are now. You can just ring them up, say, oh, I need blah 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 blah. Yeah, it'll be here tomorrow. You didn't get that sort of service. You know, you had to go to your local sort of like spare parts shop, like Les Smiths. No one, people probably won't know who Les Smiths is. It used to be like a little accessory type shop, but they could order you in parts, you know, or you go to the main dealer and buy a part. You know, you didn't have the aftermarket as it is now. So a lot has changed in 40 years, massively. You know, cars that you could work on, but cars that you now can't work on because they're all electronics. You know, not being able to really get the parts you needed. Now you've got quite a big choice of parts, you know, outlets you can go to.
Well, imagine if your dad, my granddad, didn't even get into cars.
If he didn't get into cars, would I be here, what I'm doing today? Probably yes, because I'd always, like, even as a kid, I knew cars coming in the opposite direction, even at night time, by their headlights, or the headlight configuration and stuff.
Geek.
Well, yeah, that's it. But you know, you did. Because like now, you don't know what half the freaking cars are on the road. You know, it's like back in my day. As soon as you saw, or even in the daylight, you see a car coming, and you knew that was a Singer or a Morris or a Rover. You know, you just knew, or a Hillman. You just knew what it was. Not miles off, but quite a distance. You would know what it is. Now you see a car coming towards you, you don't know what it is, because they all look the same. So, anyway, look, I don't know how this video is going to come across. I hope you enjoy it. Just a brief overview of my car ownership from the 90s, but predominantly wanted to talk to you about it from the COVID onwards perspective. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this. You know, if you like what you see, you know, sort of subscribe, click the notification bell, give me a thumbs up, you know, all that good stuff. It'd be great, you know. So a quick update. I know I keep saying the Rover's coming. Yeah, it is coming. So I've had a phone call with my mate a couple of days ago, and it's coming on the 17th of January. So that is a week Saturday. So whether I'm going to have content for next week, I'm not sure. But the Rover is arriving on January the 17th. So bring it on. And I'm looking forward to showing you around that and showing you what a beauty it is. But anyway, thanks for watching. Till next one. Bye.